So last session we discussed this very important verse uh, where we discussed the analogy between our machine-like body and a robot. We discussed this concept, which is clearly mentioned in the Gita also. We took this last verse from the, not really last, but 61st verse from the last chapter of the Gita, 18th chapter of the Gita, which says that this body is like a machine, yantra rudhani mayaya, and the self is situated in the body, is situated in this machine like a driver. So the self or the atma is driving this machine, and ultimately the supreme self or the Ishwar, he is providing the energy to the atma. So the Ishwar is also located within the self, because ultimately Ishwar's energy or the supreme person's energy is energizing every individual self or every individual atma. So the consciousness or the life force of each atma is derived from the supreme self or the Ishwar. So that's the concept here. So if we, for the time being, if we just focus on the individual self, we say that that self is driving on this body and is acting with the help of this mind and body. So mind is a subtle aspect, body is the gross aspect. So mind is basically the subtle aspect of our personality, like just like software, and body is the hardware. And then we discussed the analogy. There is a hierarchy given over here. Just like in a robot, we have a hardware. Like that, we have the body, which is like organic robot, is made up of organic matter. And then we have the mind, which is basically the subtle aspect of our personality. So we have all our software, that means emotion, ego, intelligence, memory, all these things help us in operating in the world. Based on the intelligence, ego, memory, past impressions, past learnings, we operate in the world. So mind is just like the software of the computer or the robot. And then, of course, there is the intelligence, which is the controller of the mind. So through right intelligence, we can control the mind. We can provide right instructions to the mind, what to do, what not to do, what to think, what not to think. That is done by intelligence. And finally, we have the operator. The operator means the self or the atma, which has complete control over the intelligence, or it should have complete control over intelligence. So the operator has, in the general scenario, if you look at computer operator, the operator has all the freedom to change the software, to change the operating system, to install antivirus, etc. So just like that, operator, we the self, are different from our body and mind. We are superior to our body and mind. We are observer of our mind and body. We should be the observer of our mind and body. We should not identify with the mind. We should not get too attached to the mind. We should just carefully observe the mind, what is going on in the mind. Then only we can control it. That is the whole story. So once we become observer of the mind, then it is going to be much more easier to control. And how do we control? How do we decide what kind of thoughts to have, what kind of thoughts not to have? That is dictated by intelligence. So if we have right knowledge, right understanding, then we can have the right intelligence and we can make the right decisions. So this is what I have discussed yesterday. We gave some examples also that is somebody who is a diabetic patient. He has been given some instruction from the doctor that sugar is bad for you right now. If you take it, your sugar levels will go up and you will suffer health problems. So he has that intelligence. He has the memory. He has the determination. He has the wisdom. He has that intelligence. And therefore, even if his mind says, his mind reminds him, oh, in this shop I had eaten a rasgulla and that was really tasty. Mind is telling him, is pulling him towards that rasgulla. But he has this wisdom and intelligence. He exercises the right intelligence with determination and says that no, means I am not going to take it. Doctor has told me not to do. If I take it, I am going to suffer. So he has that intelligence, and as the operator, he makes use of that right intelligence. He has got intelligence from the right source, and he is deciding that yes, I will make use of this intelligence and I will control the mind. I will not look at the dictates of mind. I will not be dictated by the pulse of mind. And then he can basically have full control. He can basically restrain himself. If otherwise he goes, he basically surrenders before the mind. Says, oh, mind is telling me, it is reminding me of all the delicious taste that I had experienced earlier. Then he will be pulled towards it. The moment he starts contemplating, he bypasses his intelligence. He starts contemplating on the thoughts, on the memories, on the experience, on the mind's thoughts. It pulls it immediately towards the object. So he just goes on chasing the rasgulla and finally eats it, forgetting about the intelligence, forgetting about the higher wisdom, the knowledge that he was given. So he basically did not follow the hierarchy. He did not use the right intelligence. He did not use the right wisdom. He he fell prey to the mind. He basically fell into the trap of the mind. He basically got controlled by the mind. So rather than being the controller of the mind using right intelligence, this person got controlled by the mind, got influenced by the mind, and then he took the wrong decision, which is going to hurt him. So this is one simple example that where we need to follow the right hierarchy. We should know that mind should be in our control in all respects. So this is just one example. You can have numerous examples from all different fields of life. We took an example of a student also, where the student is intelligent and at the same time wise enough. Okay, so somebody said that audio is fluctuating again. So let me know whenever there is a problem in the audio. I hope just that the audio is really clear, because yesterday's recording, whatever I saw, it was very low. Like the audio, the volume was very low somehow. I don't know how. So if that is happening, please let me know.
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay. So now, if we the example of a student. So there we saw that the student is having the right determination, intelligence. He has been given some information about the importance of his studies, that he has to prepare well for the exam. He has to get into the right college. He has, once he's in the college, he has to do his work over there, and he has to get into a good job. So he has been given the intelligence. He has seen that okay, his seniors are pursuing the right path and taking the right kind of job. Likewise, he sees that his relatives have done well. They have maybe cleared this exam. So he has learned from several sources that it is important that you control yourself and invest your time in studies and do well. So this is the system we have. So his mind may be pulling him towards 10 other things. Cricket match going on, let us go and watch. Or there is some gossip going on, let us go and spend time with friends. Or let us go for a picnic, outing somewhere. Let us go out and eat some tasty stuff somewhere on street. Let us go and watch movie. So the mind has 100 different options to basically distract him. So it keeps offering, the mind has hundreds of thoughts going on. So it has a lot of experience in the past also. So if we don't have control, all those experiences will keep coming. We will keep reflecting upon those things. Along with that, there may be many instances, many incidences. Some of them may be bad incidences. Some of them may be ugly incidences. So we will, uncontrolled way, we will keep reflecting on this. Unnecessary wastage of time. We will keep thinking about many nonsense. Many times it happens, the students say that while studying, they are not able to focus. They are not having attention, and their mind is wandering, because they have not practiced that process. They have not basically detached themselves from the mind, and they have not basically practiced full control of the mind, right? So that is why their mind is so much wandering, and they are not able to focus on one point. So first of all, in order to control, they need determination. They need to understand that means this mind's dictate have to be controlled. Then only they can proceed. So I'll pause the video for a few moments. I think somebody is at the door, and then I will get back. So Kuldeep, could you please pause? Hello? So we are looking at that student's example also, where ultimately if he has to do well, he has to really detach himself from the pulse of the mind. He has to rise above the pulse of the mind and become the controller of the mind, dictate the mind like a boss with his determination, with his right intelligence. So the intelligence and determination both are coming into picture. And determination is the characteristics of the self. When we are saying there is a determination, that determination comes from the self. Determination to do the right thing, to follow the right intelligence, to follow the right information, to elevate above the mind and control the pulse of the mind, subdue the mind. That determination is the characteristics of the self. So once we say that he's the great self, somebody is a great self, Mahatma, right? Mahan Atma. So why a person becomes Mahan in general is because he has controlled himself. He has controlled the self. That is the main characteristics. The better a person is able to control himself or control his lower self, like the mind and the body, the better he is. That person is regarded as great because once he has control over his self, then only he can do real good to others. Otherwise, he will be only chasing himself, his own mind, his own emotions, his own interest, his own selfishness. So, in order to really, do selfless work and do good work and be free from the pulse of the mind, be free from all agitations of the mind, it is important that we are able to detach ourselves from the mind, elevate ourselves from the mind, and then become controller of the mind. So that is the example we have discussed, and this is something where we need to contemplate again and again. It is not something which is grasped in one go. That's why I'm again repeating this concept and again revisiting this verse because it is so important. But it's very very core. Once we understand this hierarchy and we are able to observe the mind, then many of the problems just get solved like that. Because ultimately, mind is a reservoir of many things, right? So it's not only actions, but even thoughts. Some thoughts can itself be themselves be damaging. So if we have control that, okay, we should not think in this direction. The moment the mind is going towards that object, that thought process should be stopped right there. If we have that much control, then we will be able to save a lot of time, a lot of mental energy, a lot of waste of mental energy will be saved, and our mental stability will be much better. So therefore, being mindful, that means being watchful of what is happening in the mind, what is it thinking. That is very important. That is the principle. That is the first thing in the yoga. The yogic principle, the mind is given a lot of importance. Controlling the mind, observing the mind, making it steady, observing the thoughts, subduing the thoughts, and also trying to achieve states where we don't have thought. If we want to completely stop the thoughts and be still, we should be able to do that. We should have that much degree of control. So that is the first definition of yoga. The Patanjali Yoga Sutra, when it starts, the first thing it says is, what is yoga? So chitta ka, the stability of chitta, achieving stability of chitta, stability of mind, and controlling it from wandering, restraining it from wandering in an uncontrolled way. That is yoga. So that is the first thing. So mental control, control of the mind, stabilizing the mind, and stopping it from unnecessary wandering here and there, which is very dangerous. So like a loafer, it keeps roaming around. There, just like a loafer, I mean, he keeps roaming around on the street. Sometimes picks up wrong things, good things, keeps agitated. So unless we control it with full force, it will lead to damage. Therefore, having control over the mind by first of all detaching ourselves from it, and then practicing, completely becoming an observer and practicing restraint. That is the first thing. Yeah, so Manoj is saying that is also the willpower. So that what I said is the willpower is assumed to be the characteristics of the self. So that is coming from the Atma. So the decision, this determination that I have to do this, that is considered to be the characteristics of the self. That determination we have to make as ourself. The operator has to make that decision. Just like if an operator of a computer sees that, okay, there is a problem, there is a virus attack. So I have to I have to install an antivirus. That determination, that decision has to be made by the operator. So likewise here, to follow the right process and to basically control, subdue the mind and thoughts, that has to be done by the operator. That is the characteristics of the self. So we have to have that willpower and determination. Without that, it doesn't work. If we just let it go loose, it will take us to 10 different directions. We'll never be able to be stable. Or even if we are doing certain things, we will be doing it with our own ulterior motives here and there. So ultimately, it will not give us the best outcomes in terms of inner peace, inner joy. It will always keep us agitated in some way or the other. If we really want to be peaceful and joyful, irrespective of external condition, at the same time, keep doing our best, keep putting our best effort, then it is better that we control the mind. Next, so these are a few verses I have taken from the second chapter itself. And here, before coming here, Arjun asks some question from Krishna. And he asks that Krishna is talking about, he's telling him a lot of things. He's telling him that you should control your mind and you should basically, you should be established in yoga. You should become a yogi. You should act like a yogi. You should work like a yogi. So before this, there are a lot of works on karma also. So that I have skipped right now. We will talk about karma subsequent sessions. So right now we are talking about mind, control, self-control, all those things. So here, before coming to this point, Krishna is talking about yoga. He's talking about karma yoga and buddhi yoga. He's talking about working or doing your work as yoga. Means you should do all your activities or your professional work also, whatever you have, as yoga. That means first of all, you should be established in yoga, then you do your work. That means first of all, you control yourself, control your mind, control your emotion, control your thoughts, become an observer of your mind and thoughts, be established in yoga, have the power to subdue the mind, then only you act, then only you work, then you will be working in the best possible way. Don't get controlled and influenced by the mind and emotions, otherwise it will take you in 10 different directions. So that is what is he explaining initially, that this is how you should work. So in fact, we will go to those courses. One of the famous sources verses is Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. So that is in fact the motto of IIT Kharagpur. That is also taken from this chapter, Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. That means yoga is the best way of doing work. So yoga karmasu, karma means of action, and kaushalam means perfection. So the best way of doing action or doing your activities is to be first establish yourself in yoga, then act. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. And this in fact is the motto of IIT Kharagpur also. It is written under the logo of IIT Kharagpur. Now we will discuss those verses related to the yoga in subsequent session. Right now I am focusing on the control part. It seems sometimes or the other, I hope there is no audio problem right now. Okay, so here after going through those karma verses, Arjun asks, you're talking about somebody who is situated in yoga, somebody who is basically doing his activities as yoga. What does that mean? And so what are the qualities of that person who is established in yoga? Means somebody who has controlled the mind. What are his characteristics? How do we identify such a person? So here he's trying to now explain what are the characteristics of a person who establishes himself in yoga. That means a person who controls his mind, subdues his mind, controls his self, and then works. What are his characteristics? Arjun is asking, how should we become like that? What should we follow to become like that? So now Krishna is answering that question. So these 3 verses and subsequent verses are answer to that question. Very, very important verses. So here, the first verse that is given is Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmannevatmanah tushtaha tita pragya sadochate. So Prajahati yada kaman. Prajahati means gives up. He gives up all the desires, thousands of desires. Prajahati yada kaman. Kaman means desires. Sarvan means all. Manogatan. Manogatan means in the mind. So one who gives up all these running desires, hundreds of desires which are always running in the mind, once who gives up or basically subdues all these desires running in the mind all the time, atmannevatmanah tushtaha. That means being situated in the self, rising above the mind and being situated at the level of self, observer of the mind. Atmannevatmanah tushtaha means once you elevate yourself from the mind, you can observe what is going on in the mind. It will always have some desire or other. Our thoughts will be always motivated by some desire. So somebody is having desire of getting some appreciation. He will be thinking about how to get it. Somebody will have some desire of getting some good food. He will be thinking about that. Somebody will be having desire of getting some prestige. He will be thinking about that. Somebody will have desire of getting some money. He will be thinking about that, chasing that target, chasing that thing. So mind will be always running behind all these thousands of things all the time. Or somebody is having some envy or fight with someone, thinking how to defeat him, how to insult him, how to take revenge. So if we observe the mind, Sometimes you'll be thinking that, okay, I have good relation with this person. He has said good words. He will be thinking favorably about that person. He will be thinking about good emotions. He will be having some affection for that person. You're continuously thinking, right? So if we see, all these are ultimately having some objective. Means if you're thinking about a person, what is the objective? Oh, that person is very nice. We want to be with that person. We want more good words from that person. We want more appreciation and affection from that person. There is a desire, right? Likewise, if we are angry about something, oh, this person has done harm to us. I want to beat him up. I want to insult him. I want to take revenge from him. So again, all those desires. Ultimately, if you're thinking about all these things, there is at the root some desire. If we trace the back, there will be always some root desires behind all these thoughts, subconsciously, always running. Likewise, I mean, if there is some greed, oh, I do this, then I will get this money. So the mind will be subconsciously also going behind all this. So if we don't observe, ultimately there are many desires that we have thought of at some point or the other. They will keep coming, and our mind will keep chasing. Sometimes some thoughts will agitate us too much. Some desires, will make us very angry. Some will make us agitated. Some thing will make us emotional. Some things will make us, happy. So likewise, thousands of things keep going, and nothing is fixed. It is all running here and there. Autopilot. That's what we call it, like an autopilot. The pilot has given up, and he has let the plane fly whatever direction it wants to fly. That's a very dangerous direction, right? That is if you don't have a right kind of software, even if you don't have right kind of operating system installed, you don't have control over the software, and you are allowing it to go on autopilot. That is a disaster. So for inner peace, for inner stability, is a disaster. We should not allow to we should not allow the mind to do that. That's why first he is saying Prajahati means all these desires. You first of all detach yourself from that. You first of all watch your mind where it is going. It's chasing some desire or the other, and it is always making you chase those things. So first of all, you observe what is the intention behind each of these thoughts, and then you pull back. Then you raise above these thoughts, and first of all, be watchful. What is the mind's intention? Where it is going? That intention is ultimately coming from your own core, and that you have to cut off. You have to wane yourself from those thoughts, and then if you elevate yourself from that level, then you will come to the level of the self. Then you will become an observer of the mind, and gradually you will be able to stabilize it. You will have to be able to cut off all those different links that are agitating you. Then it becomes tushtaha. That means then it becomes satisfied within the self. Then it becomes satisfied in that peaceful position, non-agitated, peaceful, blissful position. That person is really intelligent. That is the real intelligence. So yesterday somebody asked, how do we know what is the right intelligence, what is the right knowledge? So here Krishna is trying to answer those things. That what is the right intelligence? So here, if you are able to do this, if you are able to have full control, and rather than chasing the desires, hundreds of desires in the mind in an uncontrolled way, if you are able to rein all these, just like horses are reined by the string, by the ropes, by the driver, chariot driver, here you have to rein in all these different thoughts which are coming in and hold them, control them. So that person is having real intelligence, refined intelligence. That is what is being said. Next is Dukheshu anudvigna manah, Sukeshu vigata spriha, Vitaraga bhaya krodha, Sthita dhiramuniruchate. So Dukheshu anudvigna manah, Sukeshu vigata spriha. Dukheshu means from sorrow. Anudvigna, Udvigna means always agitated. Anudvigna means not agitated. So Dukheshu anudvigna manaha means mind is not agitated by sorrow. All kinds of negative thoughts which are coming, mind is not agitated by them. Likewise, Sukheshu vigata spriha. Those thoughts who feel like they are giving us pleasure, we may be more inclined towards thinking about this. For example, a person is thinking about any object or any memory which is pleasing to him. Maybe his friend has said some good things to him, and he's continuously thinking about it. So it may look like, okay, it is giving some pleasure. I mean, those good words are giving him some pleasure. Those praises are giving him some pleasure. Therefore, he is again and again thinking about that. But that also has repercussions. It will create attachment. It will create all kinds of infatuation. So, and it will create desire for more and more praise, for more and more appreciation. He He will become dependent on that person. He will want to have company of that person. He doesn't have any control. Next time that same person can come and insult him, right? Then he will feel hurt. So he is, by thinking continuously about that particular person, he is basically getting more and more dependent on that person, and that way he is creating risks in the future. So even that thought, which looks like okay, it is pleasurable, sukheshu means vigataspriha, he should detach himself from that thought also, because ultimately it may drag him again in future into pain. So some thoughts which are appearing pleasurable and we are attached to it, attached to thinking about it again and again, trying to derive pleasure from it again and again, those things may also ultimately make us susceptible to more problems. So we should not get attached to even those positive experiences, thoughts, emotions, and keep thinking about them in an uncontrolled way. So that's why it is saying, Dukheshu Andigmana. Even if the sorrows are coming, tensions, there are some, negative things happening. Some people have done wrong things. Some people have said wrong things. Some loss has happened. Anything. Mind should not keep contemplating and keep, focusing on those things. Likewise, the mind should not keep focusing on something pleasurable, some pleasurable thought, pleasurable memory, pleasurable statement, etc. Vita raga bhaya krodha. Vita means without. Raga means attachment. Attachment can be negative, positive. Just like I told you right now, positive attachment means positive emotional attachment. Negative attachment means hatred. Somebody is having, negative attachment means is having a negative anger, hatred, etc. towards one person and continuously thinking about that person negatively. So you will get agitated more and more, more and more. You will get restless. You will get irritated. You will feel like doing some bad thing to that person. You will start thinking about, or you will start wishing ill for that person. Let that person die. Let that person get injured. I hate that person. All those thoughts will start coming, right? Which is ultimately going to hurt you, nobody else. So, with raga bhaya. So, rag means both kinds of rag. Positive rag, negative rag. Positive attachment, negative attachment. He is devoid of that. He has given up all that. Bhaya, fear. Fear also he has given up. He has to control the fear. So ultimately, fear is also coming from mind. So if he is able to elevate himself from the mind and its thinking processes, fear will also subdue. Way of controlling the fear. Because how does fear get generated? Thinking about problem again and again and again, and rather than focusing on the solution, rather than focusing on the action, just contemplating on the problem in an uncontrolled way. That's how fear multiplies. So if you are having the control, because the fearing a problem is not going to do any benefit. It's not going to give me anything. Let me focus on what has to be done, what action has to be done. So rather than that, if we don't have control, what will happen? Whatever is the biggest problem in front of us, whatever is the biggest fear in front of us, somebody has, played some politics against me and I am having some big problem in the office. So again, the mind will start fearing, oh, that person is so powerful and he's going to have, he's going to create more and more trouble for me, and I am having fear of that person. So that fear, we need to detach from that fear also. If we have better control on the thought, then we have better chance of detaching ourselves from the fear. Then rather than in an uncontrolled way, always focusing on the problem or the source of fear, we will focus on how to solve it, what kind of possible solutions are there. So that is also a way of detaching ourselves, getting rid of the fear. So one way is devoid of this attachment, fear, and finally krodha. Krodha means anger. So anger also ultimately it is generated by the uncontrolled mind. Contemplating about somebody negatively, he has said something, he has hurt me, he has done something bad, continuously thinking and becoming more and more hateful, like a fire. The anger is compared with a fire, right? So it, the more you feed it, the more you think about that particular thing, it will burn you more and more. That's why that origin also is in the mind. So any angry thought also originates from the mind. So if we know that ultimately the anger is burning us, it is hurting us, it is agitating us, it is wasting our time, it is wasting our efficiency, it is nothing, it is doing nothing to somebody who has done bad to us. So ultimately it is lost, right? So somebody who is able to observe and control, hey, this angry thought is useless, means let me just get rid of it. Of course, that person is having the right intelligence. So once a person is having the right control of the mind, once he becomes mindful, once he becomes observer of the mind, once he starts dictating the mind, then he automatically gets control over all these things: fear, anger, hatred, attachment, all those things. So that person is what is called Sthitah Dhira Muni Uchyate. He is rightly situated. Sthitah Dhira Muni. Dhira means Dhir is again a pretty broad term. Dhir means also patience, or Dhir means somebody who is Sahishnu, who is tolerant, who is stable, who is not perturbed, who is always in equanimity. So that is Dhir, who is not agitated, uncontrolled way. Sometimes getting happy, sometimes getting disturbed, sometimes getting angry, emotional. So if we just sit silently in the room and we don't control the mind, it will keep playing game with us. We will be like a puppet in the mind's hand. Sometimes getting agitated, sometimes getting greedy, sometimes having some ambition, sometimes having some other thoughts, sometimes having some hatred, sometimes thinking about someone, sometimes having attachment towards someone. All those thoughts keep coming, keep coming, keep coming if we don't control it. But one who is mindful, one who is controlling the mind, for him all these things will disappear. So that person is actually situated in equanimity. Dhira Munir Uchyate. So that person is actually in control. And then the third verse over here, it says, Yah sarvatra nabhishneha tat prapya shubha shubham. Yah sarvatra nabhishneha tat prapya shubha shubham. Tat prapya shubh and ashubh means whether he achieves something which is good or achieves something which is bad. Shubha shubham. Abhinandati na dveshti tasya pragra pratisthita. He neither gets very elated when he is getting something bad, nor he gets too depressed when he is getting something. He doesn't get too excited when he is getting something good. So na abhinandati. Abhinandati means getting very elated, very excited, very happy when he is getting something good. So once he becomes controller of the mind and he sees that these mental functions, these thoughts, these emotions, this pain, pleasure, these are just running in the mind. These are just the function of the mind. And if he is able to observe these thoughts also become just like object. These emotions also just become like object. So just like there is a mechanism, there is a biology behind why the rasgulla looks or tastes good. So it has some sensation, right? So the tongue has some sensation, it feels it, it sends a signal to the mind. It is having some soft texture, it is having some color, it is having some smell, it is having some juice, it is having some sweetness. So all these things combined together are felt by the tongue, and all that sensation is recorded by the mind, and it feels some pleasure. So that is just a mechanism. Likewise, all these thoughts also, whatever are coming, pleasure, pain, hatred, anger, attachment, emotion, these are also coming from the mind level, from the thought level. So if we are able to become observer of the thought, these mental fluctuations also, they become objects of observation. We can just observe them carefully, what is going on. Then we don't get perturbed by them, we don't get entangled into them, right? So just like a diabetic patient is able to control his desire to eat the rasgulla, here a person who has controlled mind, he has the determination to control the weavering of mind and go into all these different directions and become agitated. That is the main thing. So whether he gets something good or bad doesn't matter. He remains stable. He remains in equanimity, and that gives him the power to tolerate any up and down while being stable, while being calm, while being joyful. Let us look at some next verse. So here, so before we go further and try to see here, these are two very important verses linked. So this is also linked to yesterday's discussion. So before I will discuss these two. So the first verse here is, this is again giving the same hierarchy that we have discussed yesterday. So here the hierarchy of the mind, body, intelligence is given. First the verse says, so first of all, Krishna has those verses are going to continue. So whatever I have started just now, that Krishna is answering who is the person with right intelligence, who is the person who is stable and is situated in equanimity. Arjun asked this question, and then Krishna starts describing. So there are several other verses also very important and very insightful. If we contemplate on that, that helps us a lot in achieving better control. But skipping some of those, I'm going to this one today, and we'll back to the others tomorrow. So here, this one is again giving a technique that, okay, you are saying control the mind, control the mind, control the thoughts, become observer of the thought. How do we do that? So that information is again coming here. So this is taken from the third chapter. As you can see, 42 verse, 43 verse. These are again two very important verses. Here Krishna says, Indriyani parani ahur indriyabhya param manaha manasastu para buddhir yo buddhe parasastu saha. So Indriyani parani ahur. Indriyani means Indriya, bodily parts, body parts, Indriya, senses, body. So sense organs means Indriya, and in general the body parts are Indriya. So Indriya are parani. Parani means superior. So Indriya, the body and physical body parts, the Indriya, sense organs, they are superior than the dull matter. So they are observer of the matter, right? So Indriya can observe the matter. Eye can see, nose can smell, skin can feel, tongue can taste. So all these sensations can give us information about the dull matter. Therefore, Indriya are superior to the dull matter. We can feel, we can get information about the dull matter. We can also control the dull matter. Indriya, there are 5 Gyan Indriya. Gyan Indriya means sense organs through which we get the inputs. Just like a computer has input devices, output devices, right? In computer system, we study input devices, mouse, keyboard, camera. They are all these are input devices. Likewise, there are output devices, the screen, the speaker, the printer. These are output devices. Likewise, in the body, it is said that there are Gyan Indriya, 5 Gyan Indriya: sense of touch, smell, eyes, the sense of vision, sense of hearing, smelling. These are input devices, Gyan Indriya. And then there are output devices, Karma Indriya, the action that we take from hands, from legs, eating, working. So these are the Karma Indriya, reproduction, all those things, excretion. These are all Karma Indriya. So these we are acting, we are doing some action. So there are Jnana Indriya and Karma Indriya. And all these things, among all these Indriyas, the king of the Indriyas is mind, because mind only dictates or basically decides. All the information goes to the mind. From the input devices, information goes to the mind, and mind dictates what to do with the output devices. So the mind is the pivot, the focus or the central point. So first thing is, this sloka is saying Indriyani Parani Ahur, means Indriyani, the physical body, whether it is the Karma Indriya, that means the organs of action, hands, legs, or the Jnana Indriya, the touch, smell, hearing, seeing, all that. These Indriyani are superior to the dull matter because they can acquire information about the dull matter and they can control the dull matter. Therefore, they are superior. Parantu Indriyani Parani Ahur Indriyabhya Param Manaha. The mind is superior to the Indriya because mind is central. It is basically getting all the information from the Jnana Indriya and it is providing action impetus to the Karma Indriya. Very clear. And then Manasastu Para Buddhi. From the mind, intelligence is superior because intelligence can dictate, it can take the decision. Or with the help of intelligence, the self can take the decision. What to do, what not to do, which thought to have, which thought not to have. If we don't have right intelligence, then we will fall prey to mind, because mind is the master of Indriya. We will do all the wrong actions to the Indriya. And mind will be also corrupted with many, many unnecessary things. So, Manasastu Para Buddhi. Buddhi is superior to mind. Buddhi can control the mind. Buddhi can direct the mind. If we don't have right intelligence, if we don't take heed of the intelligence, then we will be falling down. And then ultimately it says Buddhe Paratastu Saha. Buddhe Paratastu Saha. Saha means the self here. He is superior to the intelligence also. He means the self. He is referring to the self or the Atma or the individual. So that operator, that driver, that self, that person who is actually making use of this intelligence, mind, body is most superior. He can decide what intelligence to have. He can update and upgrade the intelligence. He can control the mind with the help of that intelligence. And with the help of that controlled mind, he can have full control over his Karmendriya, Jnanendriya, and then he becomes completely stable and devoid of all negatives. So that is the process, hierarchy mentioned. And the next verse is Evam buddhe param buddhva sanstabhyatmanamatmanaha Jahi Shatrum Mahabaho Kama Rupam. So this is Evam Buddhe Param Buddha. Therefore, knowing that he is even superior than the Buddhi, the self is higher than the Buddhi also. Tantabhyatmanam Atmanaha. Therefore, from your higher self, from this intelligence, you control your lower self, which is your mind. And Jahi Shatrum Mahabaho. Therefore, O valorous one, please control this enemy of hundreds of desires which are running in the mind and running berserk, creating so much havoc and making you restless. Control them with the help of intelligence. You are the superior, you are the controller, you are the powerful, you have full control over your intelligence, with the help of which you can control the mind and the indriya. Arjun started with saying that I am losing control over myself. I am feeling as if I am burning with sorrow. He's having depression. He's getting sensation of burning in skin and in his throat. He's not able to speak. He's not able to hold his bow and arrow. He has fallen down. He's completely fallen down. So he's so agitated and depressed. He's suicidal currently. That's why Krishna is saying that understand who is superior. You are the superior. Don't fall prey to all these turbulence in the mind. Once you control the mind with the help of right intelligence, you are the master. You become the dictator. You don't become prey to the uncontrolled mind. So this is the process clearly mentioned. First of all, you have to remember this is the hierarchy and become observer of this hierarchy. Then only we can practice it more and more. So before we close, I will take more questions. Let's see. Any question? Is there any question before we end? I hope I am connected.
Yeah. Sir, I have a suggestion.
Yes.
About few great people in history whom we can relate to as a yogi. I mean, they are in the real world doing the real things, but still we can relate to the sloka that you mentioned, that they are stable in all conditions. Can you name a few people like this, or in the current days also, in modern days also?
See, any person who is doing work efficiently without getting disturbed, without getting agitated, he is a stable person, right? So if you see a person who is very composed, very calm, doesn't react so much, doesn't start saying all kinds of nonsense, he keeps doing his good work, whether he gets appreciation, whether he gets bad things, I mean, he remains balanced. He keeps doing his best work to the best of his capability. He is controlling the body. He's trying to maintain good health. He's not so uncontrolled that he eats nonsense and spoils his health. He keeps a balance. He keeps focusing on the good work. He keeps focusing on the contributions that he has to make for the society, for the nation, for the organization. So those are people who are well balanced. Again, some people may start focusing on their own personal agenda and have desires that if today I am at this position, I have to go to higher position, and that is my objective. I have to basically self-aggrandize. The term is self-aggrandization. So I want to basically elevate myself more and more. I want to get more ego. I want to enjoy. I want to basically pursue my desires. Then that person will be doing selfish acts to gratify himself, right? So if a person is having control, then he will not be agitated by all those unnecessary thoughts. He will just focus on putting his best effort, executing his responsibilities and duties, serving the people, serving his organization, serving his associates, and whatever he gets. Sometimes he may get insult also. Sometimes he may not get rewarded. Sometimes he may get rewarded. Doesn't matter. Those external things should not matter. His internal satisfaction should matter. That I am situated as the self. I am seeing that I, as an individual, have performed best of my effort. I mean, put best of my effort, and successfully whatever I could do using my intelligence, body, etc. I have done that without getting perturbed by all this nonsense and without acting in a selfish way, trying to gratify my own minds and emotions and doing wrong things. So if a person is convinced about that, then he is situated in the right position, right? So it's not necessary that a person who is, for example, a person who is making a lot of money by doing corruption. So his mind is always corrupted. He is always trying to get more and more money by anyhow. So he is not caring about what is right, what is wrong. His intelligence is hijacked. He doesn't know that whatever he's doing, he will have to face the reaction of that. he will also face the reaction of the karma also. So that is one simple example, and there are many people. I mean, it's not there are many people who are very composed, and you can find out in daily life, right?
Yes, sir.
So when you interact with some people, you will figure out, oh, this person is really, really very, very selfish. He just wants self-actualization. He wants more and more, ego boosting, and he wants to have more and more material. He wants to have more and more benefits for himself. He doesn't care, what is his contribution to the world, what is how is he helping others, how is he contributing to others. He doesn't care for any of those things. He just, wants that, okay, he should get everything. He should get pleasure. He should get admiration. He should be worshipped. So these are the things which will make him even more agitated. He will always be agitated. How to get this? How to get that? How to get more people under me? How to get more power? Those things will keep coming in his mind. He will not think of how to be a good servant, how to serve well, how to contribute well, how to perform well. So he will just think about selfish things. So these things may be at many different levels. Even at a simple, smallest level in a family, a person may be trying to become a boss and trying to exploit his wife, or trying to, dictate certain things. There are many examples, right? So rather than being situated within himself or herself, trying to exploit another person or trying to get benefit out of other people. These are all examples of one person who is stable and person who is not stable. In a relationship also, ultimately, if you are always trying to derive benefit from others, so I should get this, I should get this emotional gratification, I should get this benefit from the relation, then it is always an agitated relation, always demanding or expecting something. I should get benefit, I should mentally be satisfied, emotionally be satisfied, I should be satisfied. So that part is always agitating. That will always lead to disturbances. Other than that, if the person is stable, he's not having hundreds of desires. I should get this, I should get that. The person should do this to me. The person should be satisfying me in many different ways. So if those desires are not there, then he will be situated in a stable position. He doesn't have so many demands and desires from the other person. Every aspect of life, whether it is relation, whether it is work and profession, whether it is ethics and corruption, everywhere you will find it. Any other question? Yes, hello, any other question? So yesterday's link, the thing is, I have repeated almost everything that was yesterday. Today, I've almost repeated everything. So I think it is recorded today. Yesterday's recording, there were some connection problems, and then there was some volume problem. So volume had gone too low. So that's why, we will share today's recording.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, I'm having a question that is not related to this subject, like a totally different question.
Yes. Yes.
Like tomorrow is solar eclipse, so like we generally in my family, like my mother used to say, you should not eat within the time interval. So why is it so?
Those are, let us discuss questions which are relevant to this one. So if the degree of connection is so weak, I will not really comment on that. So I'm not an astrologer, I'm not expert on these matters, or maybe there are reasons. So I don't want to comment on this.
Okay, sir.
If you have anything related to the philosophy that we are discussing, the process that we are discussing, anything related to that, even remotely, then we can discuss. Otherwise,
Okay, sir.
yes. Any other question?
Sir,
Hello.
Yeah.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Hello.
Yeah. Please,
Sir, I have
your
a
question.
Sir, I have a
Sorry?
question that you
So
are
some ladies are trying to ask. Please let her ask. She asked first. So
Yeah.
please.
Sir, Jai Shri
Yeah.
Krishna.
Yeah, Jai Shri Krishna.
Sir,
Yeah, please answer. Question पूछिए.
let me. Sir, second chapter is so vast, that is Sankhya Yoga,
Yeah.
and it is said it enough, not requirement of other chapters, but Arjuna, to Arjuna it is necessary. The third, fourth, up to 15 chapters, all these chapters, I think, after listening to so many lectures from so many persons, I realized that only after knowing the gist of from third chapter to 18th chapter, that is the Karma Yoga, Atma Samjama Yoga, Jnana Vijnana Yoga,
Yeah, tell me what is the question.
all these chapters, after knowing something about all these chapters only, one is able completely to understand the second chapter, the Mana, Indriya, mind, Indriyas, etc. These are the materialistic things, materialistic things.
So every chapter is important and there is some certain sequence presented. So second chapter is self-sufficient in itself. So it has a lot of important things, and without going forward also we can relate to most of the things. So these shlokas that I have taken from the second chapter, they are self-sufficient. Anybody who is contemplative, they can relate to it very clearly. There is no doubt.
Sir, but for beginner, I think for a beginner, it is
Not necessary. So there are enough number of commentaries and explanations where you can understand second chapter directly also. There is no need to read everything, then come back to second chapter. That is not true. So if you read right kind of commentary, right explanation, you will get the understanding.
overall gist of Bhagavad Gita about the 18 years in a single lecture, then only it will be convenient to understand the second chapter, I think. Excuse me, Jai Shri Krishna.
Yeah, so that is second chapter is definitely having a good amount of information.
very-
It is having some discussion on Buddhi Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Sankhya Yoga. So there is a lot. The initial verses are about Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya means identifying the object as they are. What is living, what is dead, what is body, what is life, what is death, what is eternal, what is temporary. So all these body soul discussion, that okay, what is sharir and it dies and it is born again. So these things are discussed in the first chapter. This is the Sankhya Yoga part. The majority of that is Sankhya Yoga. Then there is little bit of Buddhi Yoga and Karma Yoga also. So some part of Buddhi Yoga, Karma Yoga, little bit of Bhakti Yoga is also there. So it definitely main part is Sankhya Yoga. Initial opening part, the talk about Atma, Sharir, and the temporariness of Sharir. All these things are, and also the description of the mind, intelligence, ego. Those things are all part of Sankhya Yoga. And after that, a little bit of Buddhi Yoga, Karma Yoga. So it definitely is having some mixture. And Karma Yoga is given in more detail in the third chapter. Buddhi Yoga is given all throughout. Sixth chapter is also Buddhi Yoga. So of course, it is having some mixture.
Sir, but for a beginner, it is not so easy to go through Bhagavad Gita for all persons. So I think all persons may easily understand how we all beginners easily can understand.
If you read the right kind of explanation, it is possible. So if you just read the sloka, maybe you will not get it. But there are many good commentaries. If you read good commentaries, good explanation, there are many people who have described it in very, very simple words. No, if you read Shankaracharya's commentary, then you will not understand because his commentary is very tough.
Sir,
To explain Shankaracharya's commentary. So if you pick up the wrong commentary, then it's a problem. So if you read commentaries which are made for general people, then you will be able to understand.
Sir. But your lecture I like very much because it is very scientifically the computers.
I'm trying to establish link with computer science and robotics, etc. Because we are from that background, and here we are talking to students also who are at least having some information about these systems, so they can also relate. And this is actually given. It's not that I'm cooking up. So these are actually there. Means you talk about input device, output device. So this shloka is talking about input device, output device. Talk about machine. So that particular verse, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam, that is about machine. That is about is talking about the body, comparing it with a robot. So these are facts given, right? So it is not something that I am just cooking up or I am just creating this analogy artificially.
Sir, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
So
I
next
am a
question.
professor in
I think we have to take
biology.
questions from other people also. So Ira Kocher, sorry. Ira
Sir.
Kocher, if someone behaves, you are Ira Kocher? So let me see. So Ira Kocher is asking, if someone behaves mean to us and moves on, how do we forgive him and not think ill about him and move on? So if thinking about him, what will you get? Means, are you going to be able to do anything? So there is hardly any point of thinking about somebody who has done ill to you. So just understand that, okay, because of circumstances or because of whatever I have done in past, maybe this is a reaction I have to face. And if it is something very egregiously wrong, you can look for justice. If somebody has done grave injustice to you, you can try to look for justice. But don't get agitated all the time. Don't keep thinking about it all the time, angrily, with agitation, with a lot of stress and anxiety. So seeking justice for something or some wrongdoing is okay. Even Arjun is doing that. But what is suggested is that you don't get too engrossed by the mind. If you start contemplating all the time, oh, that guy has done bad to me, I have to take revenge, I have to take revenge, you're going to get nothing. Rather than that, you focus on other things. I mean, you let the case go on, let you try to get the justice, but you focus on many other things. You keep doing your work. Life has to progress. So you detach your mind from that single point. Otherwise, life will be hell. You will be living in a torturous way, right? That's what we are saying. If it is something which can be ignored, please ignore and move on. If it's a small thing, but if there is a grave injustice, then of course you go for the justice process. But don't sell yourself to the mind. The other mind will make it hell for you, and you may take law in your hand and try to do something bad, right? So it's better that you have full control on the mind and then seek justice. And Mr. Manoj Sharma is asking another one. So this is, I want to know, is conscience Atma? So conscience is something like the decision, right? It's called something called, I would say, Vivek, or something called, it's basically decision making power of Atma or the self. So once you are controlled, once you are detached from the pull, desires and hundreds of things in the mind, then you are in touch with the real self, and then you have better possibility of knowing, or better possibility of utilizing the right intelligence and the wisdom to decide what is right and what is wrong. That's why we often say that, okay, means you should ask your heart, you should listen to your heart. Dil se pucho. So what is that? Dil means, ultimately Gita also says that the consciousness resides in the heart. Means ask your heart or listen to your heart means going to the level of consciousness, going to the level of the self, elevating yourself from the pulse of mind, emotions, thoughts, all kinds of 10 things going on in the mind. Elevate yourself from there, become stable, listen to your consciousness. That consciousness, that self is full, that can take the right decision once it is detached from the lower self. If you get entangled in the lower self, if you get entangled in the mind, then you will do actions or take decisions based on dictates of the mind. But if you elevate yourself from there, then you have possibility of taking right decisions. So that action of taking right decision, that is conscience, right? So that is coming from the self. Once you detach and elevate yourself from the lower self, which is your mind and body. Aishwarya has a question. Once we observe and watch our thoughts and mind, how shall we proceed further then? So it has already been said that, okay, means if you have hundreds of desires coming into mind, don't pursue them. Means stop those thoughts which are always pulling you in 10 different directions. So I try to prove in the beginning that whatever thoughts are coming randomly, there is some desire or the other behind it. I have to do this to achieve that. If somebody has done bad, there is a desire to take revenge, and a lot of thoughts are coming regarding that. So 100 different desires will keep coming, right? And 100 different thoughts will keep coming. So one first thing is that you have to cut off. You have to stop. And once you stop, then only you will have control. So it's not just observing. First is observing, but next step is restraining, controlling. And yoga means, the first definition of yoga I said in the beginning, it is about restraining thoughts and achieving complete stability and stillness, practicing that stillness. You should have so much control that if at this moment I want to go thoughtless, I want to have complete zero thought, I should be able to do that. So that is the level of control that is being talked about. Any other question? Somebody else was also asking question. I think I had stopped him. Basab Ghosh is asking, Mr. Basab Ghosh, the mind is always wandering aimlessly. We must stabilize the mind, but what will be occupied in the mind throughout the day? But what will be occupied in the mind throughout the day? So do your work, means focus your mind on the action. So if you are having a stabilized mind, with a stabilized mind, you can do a lot of good things. You can completely focus on your work and be more attentive in your work, take pleasure in your work. If your mind is stabilized and not going into hundreds of directions, then you have more interest in the work also. Then you don't say that, oh, this work is interesting and that work is boring. Watching TV is interesting, doing my professional work is boring. Those things are at the thought level, at the mind level. Once you have control over the mind, nothing will be boring. Everything will be, done as a duty. What the right thing you will be doing as a duty, and you will be taking pleasure in that also, because you are doing the right thing. The self will be satisfied in executing the right duty. So apply your mind in doing right things. A right thing means many things. So you can say good things to others. You can serve others. You can do your job with highest efficiency. In your free time, you can go out and do something meaningful rather than watching television and wasting time. So there are a lot of things, right? So there is no dearth of options for the mind. If we have control over the mind, we have 100 other things, positive things, good things, which are beneficial for ourselves and beneficial for others that we can do. Tomorrow is International Yoga Day, right? So we can spend time on yoga, pranayam, improve our concentration, improve our meditation, improve our health, right? 1 hour, 1.5 hours. Many things. We can pack our day with a lot of good things. If the mind is wandering, we can't even do the yoga properly. We sit for pranayam and 100 different thoughts are coming in the mind. Then the pranayam is useless. Whatever Anulom Vilom you do, Kapal Bharti you do, and Surya Namaskar you do, all that is useless if your mind is not controlled. So if you are able to control the mind, everything, whatever yoga, pranayam, puja, meditation, that will also be more fruitful. Your work will be more efficient and you will get more free time. You will be able to do your work in lesser time because you have more focus and more attention. You will be able to save more time to do more quality good things. Maybe you will be able to read good things. Maybe you will be able to read the Upanishad and Vedas and the Gita commentary. Maybe you will be able to listen to good videos, productive videos, because you know that, okay, I don't want to watch unnecessary comedy show on YouTube video, because it's comedy show is nothing else, but it's just tickling my mind for some time. It is not giving me anything solid. Rather than that, I will listen to something which is really good and profound, which is elevating me. So, I will be making the right decisions and doing the right things at the right time, doing best of my work, best of my effort, and saving more time to do more productive things, trying to serve others. Any other question? Okay, so if you don't have any question, we'll take leave for today and let us meet tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. Please comment. I eagerly wait for comments. So every day I'm coming for you and connecting over here and discussing these things. So I also expect that we get some comment regarding any point that was not clear or any issues, any weaknesses in the presentation, anything that you are not liking, any part that you want to improve. Please comment on that in the form, and that is very helpful because we want to improve this program. All right, let us take leave. Thank you, everyone.